welcome to my channel, GC Travel. I am here between the pillars of sanity with some key advice about traveling abroad as an American for the first time. So first, like, subscribe, share, comment on this video, join the blooming gang as we learn, grow, and travel abroad. All right, first things first. Americans have a really bad reputation abroad. Specifically, white people. Now, Americans abroad. Now, first off, let's just talk about the term American. Americans are anyone from the very tip of Canada all the way down to Chile. So we're not called Americans while abroad because that's a continent. We're called CIPOs or USians or even just people from the US, right? And we have the grossest reputation abroad. And at first, I remember just hearing about these things, hearing about the stereotypes, but I couldn't believe we would act so bad abroad. You know what? It's like my mama said. It's one thing to show out in the house, but to show out while you're out in public is another situation entirely. So I've compiled 10 tips on how to not be that guy abroad. All right, tip number 1. Don't expect everyone abroad to speak English. Surprise! On my first trip to Spain, I was in Catalina, and I had the most typical gross American tourist I have ever seen, right? The bus driver obviously didn't speak English because we are in Spain, where the language is Spanish, almost like the name of the country implies. So the bus driver stops, and our tour guide, he spoke English. These people went up to the bus driver, the driver, not the tour guide, the driver, and said really loudly, "When's our next stop?" in English. Now, these people, let me just set the scene, were red in the face, wearing the button-down Hawaiian little flower shirt and the tan cargo shorts and sandals. And the husband and wife combo were wearing the exact same thing. It was gross. The bus driver, obviously not speaking English, is looking at them like, and then they look at the bus driver like, and I'm looking at them like, so I try to go up to him and be like, "Hey, the bus driver obviously doesn't speak English. Try saying it in Spanish." No, they don't do that. They don't do that at all. They're like, oh no, honey, oh no. When is the next stop? This is why they all hate us. The bus driver literally just kept looking at them like, I hate these motherfuckers. All right, the second tip, and this one, listen closely. Stop being so fucking loud. Why are y'all so loud? Why? There's nothing I hate more than loud people. You guys are up here. We're gonna bring it all the way down here, okay? When you're that loud, there is literally no reason to be that loud. You're loud in bars. You're loud while standing in line. You're loud at waitresses and waiters. You're loud on the transit. No one gives a fuck about your conversation. You can keep it at a minimum. Keep it at a conversational tone, but why are you yelling? Why are you so loud? And then not only are people loud, and I am an American person looking at other Americans just like, but not only are you loud, you're oftentimes racist and loud. Now you're just 2 times the volume. Like, shut the fuck up. Now for tip number 3. Your US rights end when you leave the US. So the whole freedom of speech doesn't exist outside of US. Your US rights end when you leave the U.S. While I was in Spain, on the way to France, we stopped in Andorra. So someone wanted free refills on their drink or something ridiculous. The waiter was like, you have to pay for it, obviously. And they got upset and started talking off the waiter and got kicked out of this little eatery. They were obviously upset. They're like, I can say whatever I want. It's my right. It's my right. My rights. My rights. It's not. You being an asshole isn't a right. Especially not to like waiters and people who are just giving you, they're giving you food. You can't. 4. Learn key phrases and terms. Now, you can't learn every language in the world. I mean, if you really tried, I guess you could. But you can't. I understand if you don't know a bazillion different languages. That's okay. What's not okay is not even trying, not having an ounce of consideration, not learning 1 or 2 phrases. That goes back to rule number 1, not expecting everyone to know English. Just because you're monolingo doesn't mean you can't learn a couple phrases. Learn please, learn thank you, learn to be polite, learn how to say where's the bathroom or how to get to the market. We have Google Translate. You can translate in real time from Google. There is no excuse. Whenever I travel abroad, and I always make sure to learn whatever language the country I'm going to is speaking. And in this case, I've traveled to a couple of Arabic countries, and learning just a tiny bit of Arabic will give you a huge advantage over people who don't learn it at all. Because 1, people are nicer to you, they see that you're trying, they see you. Number 5. And this one might be a hard one for some of you Americans watching. And the very most important thing, and probably the most important tip, or second most important tip of all, is number 5. Don't be a racist. Now, I'm specifically talking to all of you white college students who go to Mexico during spring break. Yeah, I see you. You Cancun going to sons of bitches. I see you. I see you when you're in Mexico for spring break, drinking, getting crazy drunk, passed out drunk, and then going right back to college in your MAGA hats talking about build a wall. Like, you can't go somewhere and be racist in that country. You went there. They didn't come to you. You went. No one asked for you to come. No one. But you went there being racist. Like, don't be racist. Especially if you're one of those people who are going to a non-touristy country, right? So I know Americans specifically have a very tiny range of countries they see as safe. Now, I do this because we all know this range is very small, and the version of safe is pretty much whatever they see as touristy in the news, right? Which are mainly European countries. But if you're going to Asian countries, if you're going to African countries, if you're going to, don't go there and be racist. Don't go make fun of the accent. Don't go make fun of the language. Don't make fun of the food. Don't sit there and disrespect their culture because you went there. They didn't say, hey, you random white person, come to my country. No, you did that. You went there. You went to experience the culture. But to disrespect the culture while being there is just ugly. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay. This one is for all the people who say, I am 26% Irish, or I am 2% Scottish, 44% Italian. Like, no. No, you're not. If you were born in the US, you are just white. You are just a white American. And one thing I've noticed so much, and it's so cringe, it's so bad, that when you go to a different country and try to teach them about their history, you can be a history major, you can learn all about their culture, all about the history, whatever. But if you have never lived there, you don't know shit, right? So stop trying to teach people about their own history. It is so ugly. It's so cringy. Like, why are you doing? If you've done that, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you. I've had someone actually, it had the reverse happen to me. I had someone from the UK try to teach me about American history and like American culture as if I don't live here. And I was just looked at them like, I live here. What are you talking about? But they were so set that they've read all this, they visited, they've done this, they've done that, they know all about America. And I was just like, no, you obviously don't. Now that one experience happened to me, but it happens way more with Americans thinking they know so much about the places they're going, right? It happens a lot with Americans. Like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't. Moving on. Number 7. Okay. We are all very used to the 64-ounce drinks for 99 cents at a gas station. That ends in the US. No other country has that. The gigantic face-size plates and portions don't exist outside the US. You have to pay for refills. You have to pay for those huge portions. That's like 2 meals, man. That's enough to feed 2 people. Even living in the US, it's very intimidating to have that much food and that much drink in front of you. So if you're like me and you prefer smaller portions of food at more frequent intervals, then going abroad is good. It's great. You feel a lot less intimidated by the massive amount of food. But if you're someone who sees the amount of food as the value of the food, then you're going to be kind of AOL when you go abroad. They have normal sized drinks. When you're at home by yourself, do you really pour yourself a glass of 2 liters of like pop? No, you probably drink just a regular cup and call it a day. Well, the rest of the world does that, and it's truly only a US thing. In all the countries I've been to, no one is offered or no place sells drinks that large. They don't sell food that huge. It's normal portions. And if you're going abroad for the first time, and you eat normally, you're most likely to lose a little weight because you're not eating those same huge portions all the time. Massive portions don't exist outside the US. Don't go to a gas station expecting like a 90 billion ounce drink. Don't get used to normal size cups, and don't tell them that their portions are tiny. Their portions aren't tiny. Their portions are normal. Our portions are massive. Unbelievably so. Also, again, for emphasis, refills cost. Refills cost. We get a lot of free refills in the US, but refills abroad cost monies. Don't be like the guy I mentioned earlier, arguing with the waiter or waitress about the cost of a refill. Read the menu, ask first. Do not argue about refills. I'm looking at you. Okay, so number 8 is a tiny bit kind of controversial. And this is one I wish someone told me before. Learn about littering in the country you're going to. So I travel to all of the countries, right? I'm not just traveling to certain specific quote unquote safe, or in the American mind, safe countries. I'm traveling everywhere. That means some countries that Americans consider third world, and some that are like touristy, basic places everyone goes to, right? Learn about the littering situation there. Because sometimes it might surprise you about the littering situation, right? For example, in Japan, littering is a huge no. It is very clean, it is pristine, similar to Singapore. Clean, pristine, littering will give you massive fines. I live in California. Littering, to me, is like the worst thing on the planet, right? There's $1,000 fines. But there's still lots of trash everywhere because people are still doing it. Like, if you live in California and you're seeing this, you better not litter. Stop it. But on the other hand, I've gone to places like Sudan, and I've gone to some pretty remote places in India where littering isn't seen as bad, right? For example, someone might finish something and throw it on the ground, and it's not that big of a deal. But to someone like myself from the US, where littering is like the most chronically horrible thing on the planet, it was like, what are you doing? Why are you littering? Why throw things on the ground? That's the cultural difference, right? We've had huge littering campaigns. We have a bunch of money to waste on like the street cleaners, yada, yada, yada. It's not that they are dirty. It's not that they're unclean or anything like that. It's just different cultural values that they, have, right? So don't litter, obviously. Don't ever litter. Don't ever throw things on the ground. If you're going abroad to another person's country, you're in their home. That is where they live. It is not your home, so you want to respect their home. But also, you wouldn't go into someone else's house and you saw that they had pillows on the floor and you're like, you're looking at them sideways. And vice versa. If you see someone who has a very clean, very pristine, things in a certain order, you want to follow that order. So learn about the littering situation, where you're going. And most importantly, don't litter. Okay, number 9. We are at 9. Learn how to dress where you're going. Learn how to dress where you're going, especially if you are a woman. So, an example, when I'm visiting Middle Eastern countries, I am wearing a hijab. Just to be respectful, right? Like, understand it might not be your religion or even your culture, but you are visiting their home and be respectful of their home. You want to assimilate as much as possible to get one authentic experience, to have people respect you and see you as respectable, and for you to show that you respect their culture. Because you're not going there to change their culture. You're going there to experience it as it is. So learn how to dress. But I also say that because, and I don't mean this to be offensive, white American man, but y'all don't know how to dress. I have a white boyfriend and he doesn't know how to dress. So I know. When I was in Spain, dude, they can dress so good. German men, they clean up nice. But if you're going to a country where they are dressed up real clean, real nice, and you're in the same goddamn Reeboks you've had since the 12th grade, learn to dress. Learn how people there dress. Do not, for the love of Christ, wear the cringy Hawaiian button-down shirt that I mentioned that couple was wearing before. It is ugly. It's not a nice thing to wear. Like, don't do it. So even from a cultural aspect, learn how to dress for the culture there. But also, learn how to dress well for where you're going. It's so easy to pick out American men in a group of just European men in general, because Europeans, I'm talking about the entire continent of Europe, they can just dress so much better than like American or USian men. Learn to dress for where you're going. Okay, and for number 10, and obviously the absolute most controversial, but honestly, this isn't even a political statement anymore, it's just a fact. Trump supporters do not exist outside of the US. So, if you are a Trump supporting human being in the US, stay home. Don't even go. Don't go out. Don't go to another country. Don't do none of that stuff. Just stay home. No one thinks Trump is good outside of the US, and barely so in the US. But to leave the US and talk about Trump and all this and that, everyone just looking at you like you're stupid and obviously gonna make jokes about you later. It goes back to my other point of not being a racist. Number 10, remember it closely, Trump supporters don't exist outside the US. The pillars of wisdom have spoken. And if that's your political opinion, keep it to yourself. Do not share that outside. You will be made fun of, you'll be ridiculed, mainly because we obviously know what's going on here is a crap show. The rest of the world sees it clearly, but only in the US. Is that a debate or political statement? If you're traveling abroad, just shut up about Trump. Don't say anything. Like, if you're a supporter, just don't do it. All right, bonus features for Black people and other minorities traveling abroad. So, I'm Black, as you can see, melanated. All right, but when I'm traveling abroad, people don't immediately associate me with being American, right? So whenever I'm asked questions about American culture, or they ask me things about like pop culture in America, well, pop culture that they've seen in the US is white pop culture, right? I don't know very much about like Friends or whatever shit white people are into. Pop culture for African Americans is things like Martin. So, that being said, when you mention that you are from the US, it becomes like a weird sort of thing because they don't see it as different cultures in the US. They see it as one giant US culture, right? So they will often mention things that are common to white people to you that you might not understand because you're just like, I'm not white people. I'm not white Americans. They have their own culture. So I usually have a better, that's why I'm able to like see outside of the US-ness and see how Americans act abroad because I'm not initially seen as American, right? And looking at y'all, it's just a mess. But that being said, once you do mention you are from the US, you might encounter that moment of like them mentioning popular culture things from the US and you're just being like, it's a leg up though, I gotta say, right? I'm not subjected to the same really gross stereotypes, but at the same time, I'm able to observe those stereotypes and make sure I don't do those same things. I'm naturally not the kind of person that's like yell and be gross and oblivious like that, but some folks are, and it's gross, it's bad. But if you are someone who is a minority in the US and you're going to a different country, you're gonna maybe experience that. When I went to Africa and went to some countries in Africa, I had an amazing time just being another Black person. Whereas in certain places, it's like, I'm just American, but inside the US, I'm Black. So your cultural identity will change everywhere you go, right? Like when I was in Iceland, when I'm in Spain, I'm just American. When I'm in Africa, I'm like African American kinda in certain parts. Some parts I'm just the American. And then in the US, I'm Black. So be prepared for that moment of differencing of identity and label. Your labels might change everywhere you go. But yeah, that has been my 10 tips for not being that guy abroad. We are literally the Chads of the world. And I want to work really hard to make sure other USians recognize our perception and not do those really gross things. It harms the people in those countries. It makes every other United States person going abroad look really bad. And just don't do it. Just stop. Just full stop. If you can act like that, stay home. But to bring awareness to how we're all acting and to not do those things, be self-aware, keep these 10 tips in mind. Like, share, subscribe, join the Bloomin' Gang. We are going abroad and we're doing it right. We're not going to be those guys. All right. New videos Tuesdays and Fridays. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure comment. Tell me if there's anything else we should add. If you're outside the US and you think there's something specific to your country you want to add, keep it in the comments and I will make sure, it gets the appropriate attention that it needs. Let us know. But yeah. All right, guys. Bye.